It is a red Monday across Kansas City, 6:05. It's great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. Chiefs are at Arrowhead tonight taking on the Commanders. We'll get to that with Kendall Gammon in 1 hour here on KCMO. But I'm going to get you even more fired up on a Monday morning to start this show than anything a sports station could do talking about the Chiefs and hyping up that game tonight. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to MC an event with the Kansas Black Republican Council. And they had Dr. Alveda King in Kansas yesterday for an incredible event where she was the keynote speaker. And I'll tell you what, if you want to be inspired, if you want to hear about a life well lived, Dr. Alveda King, she is the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the daughter of A.D. King. You've got to hear this lady talk. She was absolutely tremendous yesterday. I thank them for having me out to MC the event. I mean, here is a woman who's been through it all. She watches her uncle get shot and killed as obviously the most prominent civil rights leader of his time. Her father ends up getting killed as well. She goes through a very difficult stretch, including abortions and everything else. And what does she end up? As a born-again Christian in 1983, and she has really given her life to her faith, her family, and promoting American values for the better part of, 40-plus years now at this point. An amazing woman with an amazing story, and she talked a lot yesterday about having strong men in the family structure. The importance of that, the fact that we've lost it, not just in black culture, but we talk about it here on this show, in white culture as well. It's not exclusive to any specific racial group at this point. The only group that really doesn't have a dad problem in the house are Asian Americans. And they happen to be the group, the racial group in this country, that makes the most amount of money and is the most well-educated. That's not a coincidence. And she went off on that yesterday. She talked about her own family struggling with these things in the wake of her father and her uncle's death, and how they didn't have those strong males in the family, and it really led to the family struggling for the better part of a decade plus. She talked about prayer leaving schools in the early 1960s up to, of course, abortion becoming legal in 1973, how those two things really work hand in hand and resulted in a far worse culture across America over the last 50-plus years than what it would have been had those two things not basically happened so close to each other. She was just an amazing storyteller and was able to give insights and perspective that you cannot get from many people in this country. So I thank the Kansas Black Republicans for having me out to MC that. From Jonathan Westbrook to Michael Austin to Fabian Shepard and everybody else involved. They have a really good organization. Many of the folks who are running for governor were there in attendance yesterday. Scott Schwab, Joe Eakins, Jeff Collier. And then there was a video message from Vicky Schmidt and Ty Masterson. I don't think Ty wanted me giving him a hard time about the Chiefs and the Royals anymore, so he decided not to show up. No, I'm sure he was tied up and busy. But anyway, it was a great event yesterday, and I was happy to be a part of it. And I'll tell you what, you get fired up for America when you watch someone like Dr. Alveda King speak, as she did yesterday right here in Kansas. Although it was in the West Bottoms, and it was the weirdest thing. The building, one side of the building was in Missouri, and one side of the building was in Kansas.
Remember when we were going to put the stadium there?
Yeah, that's literally what I thought about, John.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, no, we're going to take callers now who are going to be like, that's where the stadium should go. It's like, not happening. But it was pretty funny. It was like, all right, so go down this hallway to place your sports bets, and then go down this hallway to smoke your pot, and you'll be A-okay. It all works out. All right, just don't reverse that, because then you're breaking the law in both states.
Well, the home team, if they're on the right field side, they'd have to pay the E-tax. The other teams, the dugout and the visitors are on the Kansas side, so no E-tax.
Well, you'd have Royals players who, if you're the right fielder, you don't pay the E-tax. Yeah. If you're the left fielder, you do pay the E-tax. Something along those lines. Oh, my goodness. Well, speaking of drama on the Kansas side of the state line, ABC News writing about Kansas yesterday Headline, Redistricting push hits roadblock in Indiana and Kansas as some lawmakers resist. Now remember, Kansas is trying to do what Missouri did just a few weeks ago, and that is add a Republican congressional seat ahead of the 2026 midterms. Missouri was able to get it done pretty easily, right? Emmanuel Cleaver is out.
You mustard move.
So, I mean, he may run, but he's unlikely to win re-election here coming up in 26 based on how the map was redrawn in Kansas City. Then, on the Kansas side, you've got Sharice Davids. She is the one Democrat out of the 4 congressional seats in Kansas. There has been hope among some in Republican leadership that they could hold a special session coming up here in early November and basically redraw the Kansas districts so that Sharice Davids would be in a much more competitive Republican district. Now, they tried to do this in 2020, but it backfired. Didn't work. Sharice Davids keeps winning by wider margins. But they've hit some roadblocks here. ABC News reporting that in Kansas, Republican legislative leaders are trying to bypass the Democratic governor, Laura Kelly, and force a special session for only the second time in the state's 164-year history. The Kansas Constitution allows GOP lawmakers to force a special session with a petition signed by 2/3 of both chambers, meaning the House and the Senate. Republicans hold 4 more seats than the 2/3 majority in both the state Senate and the state House. But after several weeks of pushing for the special session, GOP leaders are struggling to get the last few signatures. So they can't get the votes from their own party to go back to Topeka and redistrict. They just don't have the votes to do it right now. And I can't say I'm surprised by this. I mean, Kansas has been weird like that for a long time. They have some of these Republicans who just out of nowhere decide they're going to get in the way of a Republican agenda. There was the guy out in Garden City, of all places, a couple of years ago. I forget what the issue was, but I think Dole might have been his name. Not Bob Dole, Dahl or something like that. But there's always these guys or gals who are weirdly getting in the way of Republican agenda items in Topeka. So when this thing first came about, I didn't necessarily have a great feeling that it was going to get done, because what exactly is happening is what I thought was going to happen. There would be members of the Republican Party in Kansas who would not want to have the special session, and they would not have the margins to basically overcome some of those holdouts to get this thing done. Because a week from today, I mean, heck, coming up on Saturday, we're in the month of November. And you've got a Senate president in Ty Masterson who is obviously hyper motivated to possibly get this done because he's running for governor. I mean, this would be a huge feather in his cap as he runs for governor if he can be the guy that gets redistricting done. You know as well as I do. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but if Ty Masterson gets all the credit for redistricting, what do you think that does for his chance to be the next governor of Kansas? You think Trump might look favorably upon that as he tries to figure out who he might endorse if he wants to get involved in the Kansas governor's race? So that's the 35,000-foot view of this. You have people involved who are hyper motivated to get it done. But if they can't get the votes that they need, it doesn't matter. And right now, it looks like that's where we find ourselves. So Missouri gets it done. Kansas, if I'm a betting man right now, which I guess I can be in Kansas, I would say at this point, they're not going to get it done. Because the votes or the petition signers apparently are just not there with the numbers that they need. It's 6:15. It is great to be starting another week with you here on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up, are SNAP benefits on the chopping block? Just days away from those potentially not getting sent out. But what's the real conversation that actually needs to be had here? We'll get to it next on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money.
So this week is going to be all about food stamps. You are going to hear a lot about that over the next few days for as long as the government shutdown is continuing on. I mean, we're getting set for basically a month here. Shutdown October 1 and November 1 is coming up on Saturday. So here's where the conversation is going, and this is where the Republicans have to think 2 steps ahead of not just their political opponents, but the media. And I am not convinced, based on what I've seen thus far, they're ready to do that. So this was the story from thehill.com. SNAP funding, that's food stamps, expiration set to hit 40 million people. Now, my first reaction is, does anyone work anymore? Like 40 million people. I'm all about having a safety net in this country. We are a generous country. We are the richest country ever. But my goodness gracious, 40 million people? I couldn't believe the number. I'm like, did they mean 4? No, that's, and then I checked another article. 4, no, it's 40. It's 40. All right. So USDA is threatening to withhold billions of dollars in SNAP contingency funding, which Congress has already allocated for emergency scenarios if the government shutdown stretches in the November. There's between $5 and $6 billion currently in that fund, experts say. That's not enough to cover the estimated $8 billion in SNAP benefits due out next month, but it would allow for partial payments to help low-income Americans with their food costs. So once again, I'm looking at this and I'm like, $8 billion, 40 million people. We're a country of about 330-ish million people. So you're talking about more than 10% at this point. That's just, I was blown away by that number. But look at how this is potentially going to be covered here. Let's just take a step back and look at this. What the article is saying, and I'm sure we'll find out more here today from Republicans and find out what their angle on this is. But the initial angle being reported is that Congress has already allocated billions of dollars for food stamps if the government shutdown stretches into November. But on Friday, the USDA, which oversees the program, released guidance saying it won't use those funds to cover SNAP benefits if the government shutdown extends beyond October 31st. So the suggestion here is that Republicans are trying to pressure Democrats into allowing the government to reopen, because if they don't, people might not get their SNAP benefits. They may not get their food stamps. If that's what's going on, and I'm going to say a big if, that's political suicide for the Republicans. There's no need to do that. I believe you've got the upper hand right now on the optics of this shutdown. Trump's flying all over the world. The guy's in Asia now. He can't stop. He's still doing his job. He's still working. I think the optics of Trump continuing to work while Congress continues to be just completely inept and unable to do anything is actually a good look for the Republican Party, because it makes it look like, well, at least the guy who's in charge of, the executive branch is doing his job. He's going all over the world. He's meeting with people. He's, ending the Israel-Hamas war. He's right now potentially, right now he's in Japan, and who knows, maybe he's going to meet with Little Rocket Man up there in North Korea. Like, all these things are going on. He's staying busy. So I think they're doing okay optics-wise. But if the money is allocated for food stamps, and then the USDA, overseen by Brooke Rollins, a Trump appointee, of course, as a Republican, says, you know what? We're going to try to put the squeeze on the Democrats here. We're going to try to put the screws to you guys and say, hey, if you don't help us reopen the government, people aren't getting food stamps. That's not going to be a win for you. There's not a win there for the Republicans. The media is going to kill you on that. And I know you can sit there and say, well, who cares about them? They're worthless anyway. I get that to a degree, but don't step right in it. Like, just keep the thing shut down. If you think the optics are on your side, keep the thing shut down until they're feeling the pinch. But if you spin this on them by saying we're not sending out food stamps, if you guys keep the government shut down, you're not going to win that. You know that, and I know that. People are just going to run these screaming headlines of Republicans won't send out food stamp payments over government shutdown. There's not a lot there that benefits the Republicans in this scenario if this is what's going on. They got to be careful. Steven in Kansas City. What's up, Steve?
No, Pete, let the demagoguing begin. We're getting trashed on TikTok and Instagram videos already. Listen, I think you're right, but we're overplaying our hand here. We were on a remarkable winning streak, and there's 20 GOP farm senators from the Midwest who are now wavering, that are kind of, according to some of the reports over the weekend. We've got to do like Glenn Youngkin and declare a state of emergency and fund the benefits, and we can switch this back on Laura Kelly, saying, well, Laura, if you want the benefits, you could declare an emergency and fund the SNAP program for welfare. So we've got to do a little bit of political jujitsu. I mean, the polls are we were dead heats in New Jersey and Virginia, and now the polls are backsliding. So we've got to get out ahead of this. There's evidence.
So are you agreeing with
me?
It's
not working. No, I'm agreeing.
Yeah,
I'm agreeing.
Okay. That's what I thought. You're agreeing.
We have to think ahead and get control of the narrative. But Glenn Youngkin is already 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody, and we need to be out there saying, look, we don't have to end the benefits. Your governor, your Democratic governor, Laura Kelly, could fund this program, and she needs to do her job and think about doing that. If the Democrats refuse to
put it on the states. Put it on the states. I got you.
That's how you win.
Yeah, I got it. Mike, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Yeah, I think that Trump needs to come out and say something to the effect, nobody's going to starve. If I have to do an executive order, I'm not going to let the Democrats do this, and then play that video of that congresswoman, the Democrat congresswoman, that's telling the people they got to suffer so the Democrats can get their way with the budget.
Oh, yeah. Who was that last week? I forget who that was.
They need to play that constantly. That needs to be played every time it's on there, before and after. But I would play that video. Trump gets on the air, sits there and says, nobody's going to starve under my administration, even if they have to do an executive order because of the Democrats, and then play it again at the end of his message.
You got savvy advice there, Mike. Actually, it's not a bad idea at all. At all. News coming up in 2 minutes. The streetcar reporting goes off the rails. No pun intended next. Well, that streetcar is not sexy. I'll just say that much. But it did open up the extension over the weekend from the UMKC all the way up to Crown Center.
Seemed like good music for the streetcar. Great lead in.
You know what? We should put that on the overhead speakers on the streetcar. That'll be my recommendation to Quentin Lucas.
That'd be great.
How's that sound?
That would sound great.
All right, good. Well, I'll recommend that to him on Thursday morning at 7:30 when he joins the show here on KCMO. So streetcar, of course, opens up the extension Friday morning. And the one thing I said on Friday is anybody in local media going to actually do anything other than just promote city propaganda on this? Not that it's not shiny, not that it's not going to be a fun toy train for some people, but at $100 million per mile, that's $350 million for 3.5 miles of streetcar in Kansas City through Midtown. Is this the ideal expenditure for Kansas City? I know a lot of it is federal dollars. That's not the point. Has anybody done any research on the TV side as to the cost-benefit analysis of having the streetcar? Of course, you're in a higher taxing district as well if you have a business or live along the streetcar when it comes to sales taxes. How's that working out? How's that paying off? All these different questions that I think are reasonable to ask, not to just poo-poo something for the sake of it, but to actually wonder, what are the net benefits of these projects? And no one really wants to do that. They just want to go there and take a video of the ribbon cutting and let the politicians say what they want to say. And you know what? The facts be damned. So this happens over the weekend on Woke 41 Action News. So you can't make this up, man. They had this reporter, and she's going on the new streetcar line over the weekend. And she's doing like a bar crawl, like she's stopping at different pubs and bars and checking in on people. And take a listen to what happens. Remember, the goal of the package over the weekend for this Channel 41 reporter was to ride the new streetcar extension. Well, a crash happens, so she ends up just walking. I kid you not. And, like, the covering of the story is such like, yeah, I had to walk a little bit. It's like, that's why this thing is not a realistic mass transit option, people. Oh, my goodness. Here it is.
We're part of the city now. Midtown was always kind of the outcast, and now everybody's stopping by, so it's perfect.
This is where we are, and this is where we're heading to. We're going to meet with a group of friends that are stopping in every single one of them to get drinks at local businesses in the area.
Well, that was our plan, but the extension side of the streetcar had to stop operations for about 1 hour and a half due to a crash involving a vehicle and a pedestrian.
We're not allowed to proceed through the 39th Street intersection.
The voice you hear is from the communications director with the KC Streetcar Authority.
So we are not completely shut down.
So we decided to walk, but eventually we took an Uber to meet with the group.
$25.
On the way, I called her again.
We are running a bus bridge.
We finally met the group doing a streetcar bar crawl.
I have all the bars and I have some notes about each one.
They actually shared their itinerary with us.
Every location is gold.
And you can scan this QR code to find it. In Kansas City, Fernanda Silva, KSHB 41 News.
Little cringy there, huh, John? I saw your reaction.
An accident with a pedestrian?
Yeah, vehicle and a pedestrian.
Oh, man.
Yes. So this reporter, literally on the opening weekend of the streetcar extension, wants to ride the streetcar, and she can't do it. She literally cannot do her report. And instead of that becoming the story, maybe this thing is not as reliable. Maybe this thing is awfully antiquated, stuck in the 50s in a way that we don't really need and isn't realistic for the 2020s. Instead of that becoming the story, it's like, oh, yeah, I couldn't actually do the report I was going to do, but don't worry, I walked, and here's my conversation with the lady at the streetcar, and we'll just have to try it again tomorrow, maybe. Hopefully the streetcar's actually operating. No one's crashing into pedestrians on the road, so, the streetcar can keep functioning. You see what I'm getting at here, right? You see the point? It's a joke. It's not mass transit. It's not moving massive amount of people efficiently from point A to point B. And quickly. It's not doing that. It never has done that. I used to live downtown. It didn't do it when I lived there. It doesn't do it now. And that's the story that continues to get lost. And here was a local television reporter who had the opportunity, literally, it smacked her right in the face, to analyze this part of the story. How often does this happen? How frequently is this a problem? Instead, it's just like, yeah, I couldn't actually do what I was supposed to do as part of this report, but don't worry, here's some people drinking Boulevard Wheats down the road after I walked to them and took an Uber because the streetcar that I'm supposed to be riding wasn't working, John.
When you have 3.5 miles to go and all day to get there, take the streetcar, right?
That's a great line. That is a great line. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. And I almost did watch the story, but I wanted to see how some of the local folks handled the streetcar opening over the weekend. And I'm like, this is exactly what I'm talking about, man. This is case in point right here, John.
It's going to look so good on the Monday Night Football package tonight, though. That little thing sliding along the road.
Hopefully there's no accidents.
You won't see the sped up 3X thing down in the corner. But.
Oh, my goodness. Last Thursday, you may recall at the end of my conversation with the mayor, I gave him a hard time because every week on Sunday, his team sends out an itinerary of what he's doing every week, right? And if he's joining other radio shows, well, he'll put like, hey, Mayor Lucas, and it's not from the mayor, it's from his staff, who does a very nice job. The staff will put out, Mayor Lucas is set to join National Panhandler Radio coming up on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. Never do they mention this interview. Never. I gave him a hard time about that. Remember that on Thursday of last week?
I do.
So I got the itinerary for the mayor, and here's what it says for Thursday, October 30th. The mayor will take part in an interview with Pete Mundo at 7:35 a.m. But there was one little screw-up. It says KCMO FM. Now, we are on FM. We are on 710 AM, which is KCMO AM, but 95.7 is a different set of call letters. It's KCHZ FM. Now, listen, I can't complain. They did their job. That's a little inside the weeds of radio. I would just say next time, put 95.7 FM, and we're all on the same page.
So do I need to go down in the hall to Mike and McKenzie to get the mayor Thursday? Is he going to be down there?
Yeah. He might be on our classic hit station down the hallway. You're right about that. I hope he doesn't call into the wrong place. But you know what? I gave him a hard time. To his credit, we are on the rundown for the mayor here on Thursday morning.
Right.
And you know what? It makes him look busier in the mornings, by the way. He's got some days where he's not doing anything until 11 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. This makes it look like he's staying busy in the morning. So this is good for him. He's got more on the agenda. He's got a busier schedule because he can put this in there each and every Thursday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. So I'll give credit where it's due. Thank you to the staff. And we'll talk to him on Thursday. And now it's on the official Mayor's Rundown. There you go. Coming up, the 6 at 6. We'll get to the top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour coming up next on 95.7 FM, KCMO. So the president's overseas, right? He's doing this trip, as you just heard from Bill O'Reilly there, in Asia. He's in Japan today. And part of this meeting, basically the whole meeting, every meeting this week, is about trying to isolate the Chinese as much as possible, but at the same time realizing that figuring out a way to do business with China could really squeeze Russia, which in the short term would bring an end to the Russia-Ukraine war. So there's 2 layers to this. There's the end of the Russia-Ukraine war by trying to squeeze Putin, and then economically, if there is a way to tighten the screws on Xi and the Chinese, that's a good thing for America as well. But just because the president's on the other side of the world doesn't mean that he's still not up for a good troll. So when it comes to 2028, the president was asked about this possibility of becoming the vice president, being the number 2 on the ticket in 2028, and take a listen to what he had to say.
One theory on how you might try to serve a 3rd term is that you could run as the vice president.
Yeah, I'd be allowed to do that.
Is it the White House or the White House counsel to your legal position?
No, you'd be allowed to do that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. I think it's too cute. Yeah, I would rule that out because it's too cute. I think the people wouldn't like that. It's too cute. It's not. It wouldn't be right.
Okay, so it's over, right? We're done talking about Trump 2028. It's over. He said there, I wouldn't do that. It's too cute. That's the end of the conversation, right? No, of course it's not. Of course it's not.
He also said I wouldn't rule it out, and then he goes back on it. So he kind of goes like 3 times back and forth.
Well, okay. All right, fine, Mark. Stop getting in the way of the details on the conversation here, but you're right. He did the classic Trump all over the map thing, but the final comment was, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't rule it out, but I wouldn't. Oh, God, now you're killing me,
Trump
Mark.
sends dog whistle. Says he won't, but he will.
Play it one more time. Leaving. Play it one more time. I just want to make sure I've got all the quotes right there from President Trump. One more time, please, on that audio clip, Mark.
You might try to serve a 3rd term is that you could run as the vice president.
Yeah, I'd be allowed to do that.
Is it the White House or the White House counsel to your legal position?
No, you'd be allowed to do that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. I think it's too cute. Yeah, I would rule that out because it's too cute. I think the people wouldn't like that. It's too cute. It's not. It wouldn't be right.
All right. Now I heard something different. He said,
did too.
I would rule it out, Mark. Right? That's why I wanted to play it again.
I thought I heard wouldn't, but I still think he just misspoke. It just kind of rolled off his tongue. He denied it, 3 times at least?
All right. I think you're on the wrong side on this one, Mark. Unless you want to play that little snippet there. I thought he said I would rule it out, but maybe he said I would not rule it out. One more time, just that little snippet there.
I'd be allowed to do that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. I think it's too cute. Yeah, I would rule that out because.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out.
It seemed like that's what he said, but that's not what he meant.
Yes.
In the whole role of the stream of consciousness there.
Yes.
He was denying it all along.
All right. So
I think he meant to say, yeah, I wouldn't, and then finished it.
I think he made it very clear there that he is not running in 2028.
Agreed.
So all those No Kings protesters who were out there
it worked.
Looking for a reason, exactly, to pat themselves on the back today, about 9 days after their dopey protest, they can feel better about themselves. Y'all did it. Y'all did it. All right, let's give them a big round of applause. You guys, without your big protest 2 Saturdays ago, Trump might have just been full steam ahead on 2028. But because of the showcases that you had all over the country, Trump has decided on Air Force One, in those comments over the weekend, that he is not running in 2028. So take a bow, all right? Go celebrate today. There are no kings in America anymore because of your protest. Way to go, everybody. Nice job. Well done. Woo! That's right. Slow clap there, John. Slow clap, my man. Couldn't do it without you. And because John Anthony showed out on the plaza in his fishnet T-shirt, man,
it's crop top, good. Dude.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, sorry about that. Unbelievable. So who would he have on there then? What did the president have to say about that 2028? Here was the follow-up to that commentary.
Well, we have great people. I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have J.D., obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do. I believe that.
That was President Trump saying basically, J.D., Marco, those are the guys right there. And that would be unstoppable. He's right about that. You're not going to primary those two guys if Trump handpicks them to be his successors in 2028. And I know there might be some debate on whether or not Marco would be the top of the ticket guy, but, you can't take J.D. as the VP and keep him as the VP. That wouldn't play out well. All right? So 2028 for Trump is over. Realize the hats are just trolling. It's all in good fun. There are no kings. Way to go, everybody. You did it. Couldn't have done it without you. Coming up, did Laura Kelly say something that just shocked the state of Kansas? Next.
Like a woman.
Yeah, that's who led the way at the No Kings protests 9 days ago now. And those who weren't women, they felt like they were women, apparently. That's the moral of the story. The data is out from American University. They collected data, and they had their researchers track protester movements 9 days ago. And here's what we've got. The typical attendee was an educated white woman in her 40s. The median age was 44 years old. Not the average. If it was averaged out, it would have been like 65 or something like that, because there were so many washed up hippies that were at the rally. So they went with median because that makes the number look younger. And to be very clear, American University and their researchers were trying to make the protesters look good here. And I have proof to back it up. The story here that I'm reading from Axios quotes a professor at American University named Dana Fisher. And when Dana Fisher was trying to explain why the protesters were overwhelmingly white and overwhelmingly female, this is what Dana Fisher had to say. Quote, "It makes sense that we're not seeing people of color in the streets because people of color are being disappeared." I mean, this is like Babylon Bee level. You can't even tell if it's real or not.
Mad libs. It's like, could you use the proper language?
So let me get this straight. Your No Kings protests were overwhelmingly white because people of color are being disappeared? Now, actually, what I would argue is the opposite of that, especially when it comes to the black community, where the president is saying, hey, we needed the National Guard in some of these major American cities because, we're trying to keep people alive and keep them safe and help reduce the violent crime. And you've got your locally elected leaders saying, nope, we don't need any help on that. We're good. We don't need your help at all. I mean, talk about twisting yourself into a pretzel to make a lame excuse for why the average person at the No Kings rally was, on median age at least, a 44-year-old white woman. I don't get it. But I'm also not shocked. I wish we had information on the marital status as well, because something tells me it was also overwhelmingly unmarried. that would be, at least with that demographic, that is where I would venture to guess the next part of the conversation would go. But they didn't have that data, or at least they didn't want to share that data from American University, because that would have been a dead giveaway as to who we're talking about here. Cat Lady 1, 2, and 3 lining up along the, No Kings protest, making sure that Donald Trump can't run in 2028 or something like that, John. That's what we've got here.
Well, I'm hoping this kind of puts us to bed. What interest can we have in any future ones? We know what it is. It's about nothing with people who have some time on their hands.
Yes.
What's there to report the next time?
Exactly.
Same stuff, different decade.
I saw this quote, too. This stood out to me. A quote from, where is it here? Psychotherapist Jonathan Alpert tells the New York Post, quote, "The No Kings movement allows people to feel belonging in community. Sharing grievances with like-minded people feels good." Okay. You know what I did to feel belonging in community over the weekend? I went to church. There's a novel concept,
Yeah, I was going to say, we can do that in a restroom, too.
Yeah, that's true. Pick
Sense of community.
Yep. Whatever way you want to take that, you can do it there, John. You'll have community out at Arrowhead Stadium tonight as well.
Another place.
Right? He adds here, therapy speak is everywhere. People start labeling others as narcissists or traumatized when those aren't clinically diagnosed. Are you trying to suggest that, well, maybe people are having some mental health issues at the rallies? I won't go there, but that's how I interpret the quote from the psychotherapist. I'm just saying. 913-408-7957, our text line and our studio line on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We're streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So coming up is one of the recent scandals going to result in a major change in both of our states here in Kansas and Missouri. We'll get to it, and I want to hear from you as well next on KCMO. I'm going to be fascinated to see how our two states handle this NBA sports betting scandal that is continuing to explode. Not because we have an NBA team and it matters for the NBA here in Kansas City. There is no NBA in Kansas City. But this thing, I believe, is going to only get deeper and darker in the days and weeks to come, unless, of course, the NBA sweeps it under the rug. But I don't believe that Kash Patel, the FBI director, is going to allow that to happen. And I believe there will be more athletes who get caught up in this, whether it's at the professional level or the college level. If you've got NBA players making $25 million a year getting caught up in sports betting scandals, you're telling me that there are not a slew of college kids with people who are leeches hanging on to them, getting caught up with bad people, whether it's the mafia or anybody else, and you got a kid at New Mexico State or something like that, or even, whatever, K-State, KU, Mizzou, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Wichita State, who might be making a little money now in the NIL era, but you're telling me he can make some serious coin by making sure he doesn't get over 10.5 points on a given night? He's not going to do it? You're kidding yourself. So I don't know. We have not heard anything from state lawmakers on either side of the state line as to what's going to happen here. Kansas obviously has sports betting. Missouri will have sports betting coming up here in, about a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
December 1.
December 1.
Is when they launch in Missouri. And no one has said anything. And that's frankly because I don't think they want to do anything. I think they're caught right now in this awkward place of knowing full well they've got a problem on their hands. But everyone's kind of looking at somebody else and saying, okay, what are we going to do about this? The state is looking at the feds. The feds are probably just waiting to see how deep this investigation goes. And no one wants to basically overreact. But I think that today you should have leadership on both sides of state line come out and say, listen, we've got the sports betting thing. Regardless of what you think about it, the program needs to be tweaked to protect not just bettors, but also, in the cases of Kansas and Missouri, the athletes. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do what they do up in Iowa, which is what Mark told us about last week. And we are not going to allow anybody, at least to start, to place any bet on the under. Because if there's an easy way to rig this stuff, if you're an athlete, you can make sure that you don't get more than X amount of points per game based on whatever the Vegas line is, right? You can make sure that you don't get more than X amount of rebounds if you're a basketball player. Basketball is the easiest sport to rig because it's so individual when it comes to things like scoring points. Football is a little harder. Someone's got to block, someone's got to throw you a ball, someone's got to call a rushing play, so you don't really know how to do it in football. It's a little more complicated. Basketball is the easiest sport to rig. And that's why going back to, the 70s in college basketball, the mafia was involved. You go back to the history of the NBA, there's always been reports and rumors about corruption because it's easy to rig. So I'd like to see both of our states take that direction, John, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that happening anytime soon.
I don't know if you've experienced this dynamic, but let's just say the NBA are the kids, your brothers, right? Mm-hmm. And the FBI is the parents. Would you kids come in here? Do you know why I called you in here? The broken door? What broken door? It was about, what I mean?
Yes,
you volunteer the wrong information. That's what the NBA's got to do is just sit there and shut up.
Yes, that is absolutely spot on. You're so right about that. I would love to see it happen. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think it's going to happen or anything of that nature because right now everyone's in a holding pattern. And I do believe, like even yesterday, I was listening to Meet the Press because we air Meet the Press here on KCMO on Sundays at noon. And at the end of the show, as I'm driving to the Kansas Black Republicans event yesterday, they play the NBA on NBC theme because they're promoting the NBA coming back to NBC. And it's like, man, I don't want to be the wet blanket, but the NBA's return to NBC has been completely overshadowed by this gambling scandal. I mean, don't get me wrong. I get goosebumps with that bumper music, with that opening soundtrack to the NBA on NBC. It is amazing. It brings me back to my childhood. It is fantastic. But at the same time, NBC didn't do anything with it yesterday on Meet the Press. It was like, the NBA's back at NBC. Woo, woo. And I'm sitting here like, guys, you're kind of burying the lead. I know you want to. I know you want no part of it. Even last night watching Sunday Night Football with the Steelers and the Packers, they're promoting the Bucks-Knicks game coming up on Tuesday. NBA on NBC. It's like, gosh dang, guys. Okay, Mark. Oh, Mark. Mark, don't do it to me, Mark. Oh, it's so good, isn't it? Oh, it's so good. Come on. Where's Bob Costas when I need him? Live from the United Center in Chicago, Michael Jordan and the Bulls take on the New York Knicks today in the Eastern Conference semifinals.
Marv Albert here.
Yeah. Marv did a good job, too. Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, I won't hold my breath. You know what else I'm not going to hold my breath on? On one side of our state line, Kansas redistricting. Ty Masterson's the Senate president, and he said weeks ago on this show that he would be calling for a special session in November to welcome back the legislature to redistrict the state of Kansas to try to basically do what Missouri did with Emmanuel Cleaver. And in the case of Kansas, that would be to put Sharice Davids in a much more difficult and competitive district and break up Johnson County. To do that, you have to get the Senate and the House in Topeka to vote to go back into a special session. And the votes do not appear to be there. ABC News, of all places, had the story yesterday suggesting that Kansas and Indiana, two states led by Republican legislatures who are trying to redistrict, simply don't have the votes right now to get this thing done. And I know that Ty Masterson wants to have it happen. He talked about it here on the show. But they are not there when it comes to having enough politicians sign the petition to get the state Senate and the state House back to work in Topeka next month to then redistrict in Kansas. And considering that we are, 5 days away from the month of November, you tell me if you think that's going to happen. I'm not going to bet on it. No pun intended, to tie it back to our earlier conversation. I'm not going to do it. No way. At this point, I think it's dead. Now, it would have been a huge win for Ty Masterson. Let's be honest. If Ty Masterson pulled off redistricting in Kansas as the Senate president, he would have been the front runner in the governor's race because he would have been the front runner to get the Trump endorsement, I believe, had he pulled that off. But right now, I'm looking at it and saying to myself, I don't see how it's going to happen, considering November's right around the corner and they don't have the votes. And the longer this stuff takes to get the votes, the less likely it is to happen. That's why Missouri, it just happened so quickly. They got in there. Kehoe called the special session. They got it done, and it was over. I mean, before you blinked, it was done. That's not the case right now in Kansas. And Channel 41 had a piece on the redistricting as well, because obviously Democrats in Kansas don't want to see Sharice Davids get squeezed. And here's what that sounded like.
While Kansas Republicans face their own battle, select members holding out on signing the petition, including State Rep Mark Schreiber telling the Associated Press redistricting by either party in mid-cycle should not be done.
It would be my voice, but it would be everybody's voice.
If enough signatures are gathered, the special session would start on November 7th, budgeted at $400,000, about enough to last 4 days.
You should have the right to vote in a district that benefits you and that represents you.
In Overland Park, Ryan Gamboa, KSHB 41 News.
Well, you really shouldn't. I mean, my district doesn't represent me, so I don't even know what that line means there at the end by that guy. You deserve a district that represents you. I mean, that's impossible. That's literally impossible. I don't have a district that represents me. I don't think that guy cares about that, nor should he. I'm just saying. That's a ridiculous thing to say. But I also don't believe that we're going to be sitting here next Tuesday, November 7th. Is it Tuesday? No, next Friday, November 7th, and be talking about a special session happening in Topeka, which is what the target date is. And is anybody going to ask how $400,000 only gets them 4 days of a special session? $100,000 a day? I mean, what are the costs? You got to run the electric bill at the Capitol. I imagine that's running anyway. Got to turn the heat on, I guess. You got to have someone clean the bathrooms. How do they spend $100,000 a day on having a special session in Kansas? It doesn't make any sense to me. Fine, you got to buy them lunch, I guess. I mean, have Grandma's Catering take care of them. They're here this morning.
Transpo?
Sure, I guess you got to reimburse transportation. $100,000 a day?
Part of the job, I think.
You got to be kidding me. What is that all about? 913-408-7957. Mike is on KCMO. What's up, Mike?
Hey, man, maybe that $400,000 is going to pay a couple of the bettors that are basically wagering whether it's going to happen or not. Hey, no, I mean, the segue from the last section, I'm sitting here, the irony of this, I'm with you on the music, dude. It brings me back to probably, of course, I'm 65, so same feeling, just an older guy. But this whole thing is ironic because you're watching the game and then you see the ads and all that, and then all of a sudden right after the music or the bumper music, you got a betting commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And the small print, I'm going. I kind of thought it might happen. It was also, I don't know, man. I think it probably, I don't know. It's just gotten bad. And maybe the NBA and maybe guys, the way they play, the way the officials are, who knows who's involved in this thing. I'm concerned about what's going to happen, but there may be a reason that the product has been so bad and all the Europeans come over and dominate because maybe they're not on the take. I don't know.
Listen, there's no doubt about it. There's a reason that professional sports leagues avoided sports betting for so long. Because they knew this was possible. They knew it. They knew these games could get rigged. They knew it. But the money got too good. The greed got too high. The billionaire sports leagues, and I'm not ragging on billionaires, I'm just saying they got greedy. They couldn't turn down the money. It's the same reason the states legalized it. They couldn't turn down the money. They're desperate to raise revenues to keep growing government, and if they can bring in a little bit of money through sports betting, they're going to do it. It's really that simple. It's all about the money. And if money is going to be your God, and it's something that came up for us in church the last few weeks, guess what? You're going to screw up. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to view it through the right moral prism. And now look at what's happening. And I really believe that we are just scratching the surface of this one big mess that is going to come with sports betting and the NBA. And I believe there are more sports that are going to get tied into this whole thing when all is said and done. And I'm glad that Kash Patel is involved in this thing, leading the FBI and leading this investigation, because I don't think he's going to go easy on these guys. You know, he's not going to buy into the Stephen A. Smith nonsense of like Trump's doing this to go after the black men in the NBA because he thinks they're woke. No, please, that's not it. The investigation was started under the Biden administration, continued under Trump, and I think they're going to get some answers on this whole deal. And people like Mark who want to place a bet, they deserve to know that that bet is being placed on the up and up, okay? That's it. Kurt Skoogs, the mayor of Overland Park, he is going to be here at 9:05. We're going to talk about the future of the Royals potentially going to OP with Kurt Skoog in just over 10 minutes on KCMO 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app.